All right. Moving forward. So AT&T announced a couple weeks ago that if their new summer event 5G fails, they're going to potentially shut down DC Comics publishing. AT&T is obviously the new owner of DC Comics. They just bought the company out. The event's going to be based around one of my favorite characters, who is Wally West, taking over the Mobius chair, which, if you don't know, is essentially a magic space chair, which is influenced with all the knowledge in the galaxy. And at the end of the Flash Forward miniseries, which I personally really enjoyed, Wally sits in the chair to save the multiverse from dark antimatter, but in doing so, traps himself for eternity. And of course, with his newfound powers, it looks like Wally is going to spend the summer in the 5G event doing a lot of changing to the timeline to, quote-unquote, put things back together after 2 major reboots. Now, I have a couple of thoughts here.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Didn't Wally just kill a bunch of superheroes at like the Hero
Yep,
Sanctuary?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Oh, believe me.
I was like, I could have sworn he went to jail for mass murder.
Yep, believe me, let me get there. Now, my thoughts here, and first of all, for the story itself, and this is what Greenblatt was clearly just alluding to, why the hell can't you guys leave Wally alone? First of all, since Wally West has come back from DC Rebirth, he was pulled out of the time stream by Barry in 2016. Then he went to the Titans, did a couple cool things with the Titans. Then Damian Wayne stopped his heart while he was younger, so in the future he had a heart monitor and almost died. Then he went to therapy because he more or less couldn't cope with the fact that he came back to life and his wife Linda Park had no memory of him and both his kids are gone. And while in therapy, he more or less exploded and killed everybody else in the therapy office. Wally West, being like the nicest, kindest human being in the DC universe, accidentally murdered everybody.
Including Roy Harper.
Including Roy Harper, one of his best friends. I was pissed about this. So he went to jail after. Then this new god, who I'm totally blanking on the name right now, basically pulled him out of jail and said there's dark matter filling the antimatter universe and filling the actual multiverse, and you have to go around with this magic wand vacuum thing and clean it up. And that's where we got the Flash Forward miniseries, which just ended a couple months ago, came out a couple months ago. It was only 6 issues long, but as a Wally West story, I really enjoyed it. He more or less went to universe to universe across the multiverse and had this magic wand vacuum thing and wiped up dark matter. And it was a fun read, but at the end, he finally, after 3 years of nonstop trying to get his children back, he gets his children back. Linda finally recognizes him, and then he realizes, oh wait, to save everything, I have to go sit in this chair for eternity, and my wife and kids can go back to normal life, and they'll be fine, but I can't join them. Why the hell can't you guys just leave Wally alone? Seriously, you knocked him off for all the new 52. You replaced him with the young version, who I like. I do like African-American Wally, but he's not the original Wally. Why can't you guys just let Wally West be back?
They have to make someone a target.
They have to make someone a target, and Wally has gotten the short end of the stick for every DC storyline over the past few years. Heroes in Crisis, which is the arc you were talking about, the miniseries that you were talking about where he goes to therapy and basically kills everybody, it was entirely blamed on him. It was totally his fault. And then they had him frame Booster Gold and Harley, which is the last thing Wally West would ever do. Like, oh my God.
Especially because Harley's been trying her best to be an absolute good guy.
Exactly. This is supposed to be the absolute good guy. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't understand it. So honestly, just why can't you leave Wally alone? So realistically, the second point is I understand you're trying to come up with new villains, and I appreciate you want to come up with new villains. So stop trying to take our favorite characters and making them villains. DC Comics did this in the 90s when they made Green Lantern Parallax. They did this in the Injustice universe when they made Superman essentially, what's his name from The Boys, Homelander, and they made him Ultraman and this evil dictator Superman. And then they do this with Heroes in Crisis. And then they make him essentially a god and flash forward, and now it looks like they're going to make him an evil god. So that's just my take on, first of all, the story itself. Now, realistically, I want to get your thoughts on that, if there's anything I missed that you guys think. But the main thing I want to talk about, first of all, is the fact that I don't think we're ever going to see any era where DC Comics isn't making comic book stories. Now, what I think is going to happen is, even if the new owner, being AT&T, does decide to close the printing presses, I can't see them in a situation where they're not making new stories. So I think there's a very good chance that we see comic book publication 100% shifted into digital media and 100% shifted being online, being computers, iPads, cell phones, tablets, what have you. We're already seeing these, first of all, they've been publishing them online for multiple years now, and you can buy the new issues for $4 a piece. Not worth it. Because the other thing you can do is you have subscription services like Comixology, DC Universe, and Marvel Unlimited, where you can get a subscription service to read practically every comic book ever for $10 a month each. And so once again, and this is where I want to get your guys' opinion on this, I can't foresee a situation where DC's just not making new stories. Greenblatt, what are your thoughts? Because we're all comic guys.
I honestly think with the way DC's been going, I think they're going to shut down. I think AT&T is going to shut them down. I mean, like, I think if AT shuts them down, I think they will get a new buyer, though. Like, if
that's
they
my
do
point.
get shut, yeah, no, like, I have a feeling because AT&T is not a great company, and it wouldn't surprise me. I would break my heart, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if AT&T shut DC down. It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
And we're talking, of course, DC comic book.
Yes, DC Comics, yeah. Well, because they're going to be chugging it.
DC Comics in its entirety going on to
this. No, because they're going to be chugging out shows on HBO Max, like, for years. Like, we're still getting a Green Lantern show.
The other thing is, and my other point to this, is that the content that DC's making that's still making the money, and I'm talking about the CW shows, which, whether you like them or not at this point, because yes, I'll admit some of them have fallen off significantly. Arrow just ended. I think Flash is still running pretty strong. That's just me. I know you guys are still on the train. I caught up with Legends of Tomorrow now that we're in quarantine, and it's still pretty good. Got weird. It got really low in the 5th season at points, but it's still really good. The Flash, though, specifically, and Arrow too, over the last couple years, they've been taking the story arcs from the Rebirth comic books. If you watch the last season of The Flash, season 6 specifically, they're taking the first half of the season 6 for The Flash was the Bloodwork storyline, which was the Flash Rebirth, I want to say something like 20 to 30, which just was published a couple years ago. If you look at Arrow, and Arrow season 7, before they had the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths deal, Arrow season 7 was based on the Amico storyline and the Ninth Circle storyline that was from the Green Arrow comics in 2016. You see what I'm saying? So while they may not be making as much direct money from the comic books as they'd like to, the comic book stories are what's making the money on the big screen and the small screen. Matt, what are your thoughts? I know you have some ideas on this.
So I think I could see the whole idea of a physical comic book dying. I mean, we're seeing it with all sorts of print media.
No, exactly.
It just doesn't, it's not feasible anymore. And, you know, to drop $5 a month for some people, or $5 a week for one comic book, when you're probably reading a few arcs at a time, it's hard.
No, you're definitely right.
Yeah. So I think it's almost smart to go subscription-based or to do it entirely digitally, but you got to drop the prices. I think if you drop the prices, a lot more people will be willing to buy comic books again, rather than finding them online and reading them illegally.
Yeah, on a site that you could end up with weird Asian porn downloaded on your hard drive and not know it.
Yeah, and then for some people like Greenblatt, that's a good thing. But most people don't want that. However, I think as far as any other sort of comic book media coming from DC right now, that's not going to go away. That's impossible.
No.
Superheroes and comics or comic book stories anyway, are at the height of their existence. Back in the late 90s, the only reason Fox owned half of Marvel was because Marvel was going under, and the only studio willing to make a movie
was Fox.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always going to be someone interested in buying. There's always going to be someone interested in creating stories and feeding money into this machine that is comic book right now.
And not just that, but it's not like we're talking about no-name characters here. We're talking about Batman, who, in my opinion, is the superhero of all superheroes. We're talking about Superman, who, in my opinion, is number 2. Number 3 is probably Spider-Man. But then you got guys like the Green Lanterns. Then you got guys like Aquaman, who I know a lot of people think Aquaman's a joke because of the 60s cartoon and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and Adult Swim and all that fun stuff. Robot Chicken, I mean. The Aquaman books are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you look at DC Comics, they have a lot of series going.
Yeah, like, they definitely got to trim down like how many series they're doing.
Really, if they want to save money, just trim down. There's 3 different Batman runs. You have Detective Comics going. You have Batman the New Adventures going. You have Batman and Superman going. At one point, you had Batman Ninja Turtles. You had Batman Eternal going with the New 52. You had All-Star Batman going in Rebirth by Scott Snyder, which I actually really liked. And then you have the regular Batman run. And by the way, if you guys aren't reading the regular Batman run, that's my favorite run right now. It's insane. And yes, Greenblatt, we will talk about Punchline at some point, but not today. One way or another, you're looking at huge name characters, and you can't own the Batman name and own the Superman name and own the Flash name and not do something with it. It's like owning a Lamborghini and driving it twice a year. There's absolutely no point. There's absolutely no point. I definitely think we will see it go completely online, because DC and AT&T are almost definitely losing money over the printing of the books. And the fact that the books are sitting up for $3.75 a piece, and they expect us to buy 6 of them a week. And it's just not going to happen. I love the idea of the DC Universe. I'm subscribed to DC Universe. I absolutely love it. Best $10 a month I've ever spent. Because I get to read everything ever. It's just, I agree with Matt. I find it very hard for actual people to leave their house, or get the mail to them, but leave their house to go to a comic book shop and spend all this money a week. And you guys live with me. I used to do it in college, and you saw how much it cost me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. But once again, I don't think we're going to be in a situation where there's no comic book content coming out.